All right, let's just dive right into this explainer. We're building a complete step-by-step blueprint today that takes you from managing basic budgeting all the way to mastering the actual psychology of wealth. Look, whether you are starting from absolute zero or you just kind of feel like your money is controlling you instead of the other way around, you are in the exact right place. Today, we're unpacking the specific frameworks that self-made millionaires, top financial educators, and behavioral experts actually use to build lasting freedom. We're going to look at tactical steps you can take right now, today, without needing a massive inheritance or, winning the lottery.
Let's kick things off by challenging some conventional wisdom. Grinding away for 40 years just to finally stop working? Honestly, it's kind of an outdated dream for a lot of people nowadays. The traditional goal has always been retirement, right? Saving up this massive nest egg over decades just so you can finally sit on a beach at 65. But you know what's crazy? A lot of highly driven people actually find that when they hit that goal and stop working, they get deeply depressed. They literally lose their sense of purpose. So what if the goal isn't to simply stop working, but rather to gain the freedom to choose exactly how, when, and with whom you work? All right, section 1, finding your freedom number.
You've probably heard of the FIRE movement, right? Financial independence, retire early. They usually tell you that you need 25 times your annual expenses saved up. For a lot of people, that means grinding to save over $1 million, which, let's be real, can feel like an impossible mountain to climb. But there is a much faster, much more practical approach, and that's calculating your freedom number. This is the exact monthly passive or semi-passive income you need to just cover your essential expenses. Think about it. Let's say your basic survival expenses, housing, food, transportation, add up to $5,000 a month. You don't necessarily need $2 million sitting in the bank to be free. You just need to build income streams that generate $5,000 a month. And here is the real secret. If you can lower your monthly expenses down to, say, $3,000, the time it takes you to reach financial freedom drops by literal years.
Lowering those monthly expenses makes hitting your freedom number so much easier. And that brings us to the absolute foundation of wealth building. Because honestly, it is incredibly difficult to reach your freedom number if you have no clue where your cash is flowing right now. Every single dollar you earn should ideally have a specific job, whether that's paying rent, clearing out debt, or investing in your future. If you don't give your dollars a job, they just kind of vanish into everyday spending, leaving you scratching your head at the end of the month wondering where your paycheck went.
Moving right along to section 2, budgeting and beating debt. To get back in the driver's seat, we literally just have to confront the math. There's this creator, Matt D'Avella, and he shared how he started out with over $100,000 in student loan debt. He totally ignored it for years just because it felt way too overwhelming. It wasn't until he actually sat down and put every single debt, interest rate, and monthly expense onto one simple spreadsheet that his whole life changed. It wasn't some magic formula. It was simply gaining clarity. Following financial expert Ramit Sethi's strategy, you've got to first assess your debts, define what a fulfilling life actually looks like for you right now, and map out a practical path forward. You have to find out exactly where you stand today. But, and this is huge, you also have to define your rich life. Your goal cannot just be getting to zero debt. That is not inspiring at all. You need a vivid vision of what you want your life to look like to keep you motivated. Here's the crucial point. Personal finance is highly psychological. Getting quick wins by eliminating small debts keeps you motivated for the long haul. Sure, mathematically, it might make perfect sense to pay off your highest interest rate debt first, but we aren't robots. When you use the snowball method and pay off a small debt entirely, you get this massive hit of dopamine. You cross a line off your spreadsheet. You feel a sense of immediate, tangible progress. And you guys, that psychological momentum is exactly what gives you the willpower to tackle those massive, intimidating debts over the next few years. Which brings us to section 3, why saving isn't enough. So once your budget is dialed in and your debt is under control, your first instinct is probably going to be to just save every single penny. But keeping your money solely in a traditional savings account can sometimes do more harm than good, mostly due to inflation. Think of saving like storing seeds in a jar on a shelf. Yes, they are perfectly safe, but they are highly unlikely to ever grow into a tree. When you invest, which is like planting those seeds in the dirt, it looks messy at first. There are storms, there's market volatility, the markets go up, they go down. But over time, those seeds put down deep roots and compound into something incredibly powerful. You really have to look at the cold, hard numbers here, because hidden costs like inflation, taxes, and management fees, they quietly steal your purchasing power. They can easily cut an advertised 8% return down to a 3.5% reality. This is exactly why you must invest in appreciating assets. If your bank is paying you 4% interest, but inflation is running at 3%, and then you pay taxes on your gains, your money is barely inching forward. If you leave 10 grand in a low-yield account for a decade, its actual buying power decreases significantly. You absolutely have to seek out investment vehicles that outpace these hidden costs over the long run.
And time is literally the most important variable in this whole equation. The wealthy didn't generally just get lucky. They gave their investments 30 years to aggressively compound. Think of it this way. When you invest $1, it creates a little clone of itself. The next year, both the original dollar and the clone go out and make more clones. Over decades, this snowball effect is how average earners can eventually retire with multi-million-dollar portfolios. The real danger here isn't market volatility, it's delaying the process and never starting at all.
All right, Section 4, Investing Made Simple.
You absolutely do not need to be some Wall Street insider for this. We're going to focus on simple, passive growth vehicles. First up, you want to utilize tax-advantaged accounts, like a Roth IRA, a 401k, or an ISA, to shield your money. Inside those accounts, you can buy broad index funds to capture the growth of global companies. But let's talk about real estate for a second, because this is where it gets really interesting. You might think you need millions to buy commercial property, but you can actually start investing in high-ticket commercial real estate with as little as $500 through real estate investment trusts, or REITs. You don't need to go out and buy a whole skyscraper or a medical office yourself. Through equity REITs that own the physical properties or mortgage REITs that finance them, you get fractional exposure to these major assets. Plus, there's this incredible federal mandate called the 90% dividend rule. This generally requires REITs to distribute 90% of their taxable income back to shareholders, which can create a super reliable stream of monthly or quarterly passive income. We are also seeing real estate crowdfunding platforms like Fundrise, Realty Mogul, and Streetwise totally democratizing this space for everyday, non-accredited investors in the US. Just keep in mind, publicly traded REITs typically offer much higher liquidity than these crowdfunding platforms or physical brick-and-mortar investments, meaning you can buy and sell your shares on the stock market way more easily.
Now, it's super important to contrast the slow lane of index funds with the fast lane of investing in your own personal skills. Skills offer a massive return on investment that traditional markets rarely match. The S&P 500 is your reliable, slow and steady wealth builder. But if you want to speed up hitting that freedom number, you invest in yourself. Taking a course to learn copywriting, video editing, or high-ticket sales, that can potentially double or triple your income in a matter of months. That is a direct lever you control to immediately increase your earning power. When it comes to passive income, honestly, keeping it boring is usually your best strategy. A simple S&P 500 fund statistically beats Wall Street professionals over the long term. No joke. You don't need to day trade or try to pick the next breakout tech stock. By just buying a small slice of the top 500 companies in the US, you're essentially betting on human progress. As those companies grow and produce value, your wealth grows right alongside them, naturally rebalancing itself as struggling companies drop out and new innovators take their place in the index. Finally, let's pivot to Section 5, the psychology of wealth. You know, we can have the greatest spreadsheets and the most perfectly optimized real estate portfolios in the world. But as author Morgan Housel points out, if you don't understand your own psychological relationship with money, you are going to struggle to sustain your wealth. There are really only two ways to become wealthy: earning more or wanting less. And wanting less is the only one that is immediate and requires absolutely nobody's permission. Housel actually tells this beautiful story about his grandmother-in-law. She lived happily on a very modest fixed income. Technically, on paper, she was near poverty, but she was genuinely happier than many billionaires because the gap between what she had and what she desired was virtually non-existent. If your expectations grow faster than your income, you're always going to find yourself feeling trapped. You've got to watch out for lifestyle inflation. Buying status symbols rarely brings lasting happiness. It just enters you into an unwinnable game. Housel points out why Tiger Woods loves scuba diving, because it's literally the only place where no one recognizes him and asks anything of him. When you buy the massive house and the flashy car, you accumulate what's called social debt. You start to care way too much about what the neighbors think. You invite unwanted judgment and expectation. Oftentimes, the absolute best position to aim for is being rich and completely anonymous.
Keep in mind that memories compound just like dollars do. Hoarding money while missing out on family experiences, that's a massive, regrettable mistake. Imagine a father who skips every single family summer vacation just to put that money into a savings account. 20 years later, the kids don't care about the bank balance. They only remember the trips they never took. He traded something that compounds in meaning for something that just compounds in dollars. The goal of money isn't to accumulate the highest score on a screen. It is to minimize your future regret.
So I want to leave you with this provocative thought. Use money as a tool to buy freedom, not as a master to buy status.
Every single time you pull out that credit card, ask yourself, who are you really buying this for? Is it to genuinely improve your life, or is it just to perform for people who probably aren't even paying attention anyway? Master your budget, plant your seeds in the market, look into accessible assets like REITs, and definitely invest in your own skills. But above all else, define what a rich life actually means to you. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and what do you say we keep building that blueprint in the next one? See you then.